Welcome to a special on second thought. No episode number. This thing is bigger than a number. This is a special Steve Sarkisian, Nick Saban on second thought. Duck, I don't know if there's fire, but boy, I smell smoke. I smell some smoke because it's so quiet on the Texas front. Nick Saban, the GOAT, they announced it for him, his retirement from coaching. And now people in Austin and the state of Texas and Longhorn Nation scattered throughout the multiverse are worried that their shiny, newly elite head coach is going to be leaving for Tuscaloosa. What do you think?
I would say there are a lot of nervous fan bases around the country, not just Texas. When a job like this opens, the plum job in all of college football, everybody's got to be a little nervous that Alabama might come calling for your coach. This is a once in a lifetime job. I mean, Nick Saban doesn't retire every day, and 9 days after he came this close to getting to the national championship game, he's stepping down. So I don't know. It surprised me because he sure seemed to have a lot left in the tank. And he obviously, there was very little fall off. I know a lot of people announced the dynasty dead after Texas beat him and South Florida scared him. But boy, he resurrected that program real quick, beat Georgia, and got back in the CFP for the eighth time in 10 seasons. So there's nobody better at his craft than him. So as far as Sark, I can't see him leaving. It's a great job, no question. It's the premier program in the nation. But one, I think Sark likes Austin. I think he's building something. I think he would probably prefer, reshaping and rebuilding this Texas program back from, I don't know, I wouldn't call the ashes, but they haven't been relevant in a while, rather than follow a goat and a legend in Nick Saban. What do you think?
Well, if Bruce Springsteen ever leaves the E Street Band, we don't think Little Steven is going to take over, do we, Doug? I love Little Steven. I do. But as far as Big Steven is concerned, the one in Austin, he's got a great gig. He's got a lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
His buyout is low. He just won 12 games, and the world is his oyster right now. And nothing gives an agent more pleasure. I mean, he could be married to Halle Berry, but Sark's agent right now has got to be the endorphins, the dopamine is flowing
Mm-hmm.
because he's got the leverage, Duck. The leverage, the threat of him leaving is so big, even if he's not planning on leaving. And we know Del Conte told you last week that a contract extension was in the works.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Sark's price just went up because his OG, Nick Saban, announced that he was retiring before Sark signed his extension. Man, good for Steve. He's earned it. But man, no one over there is talking. The Longhorn Nation is nervous, along with the Ole Miss Rebel Nation with Lane Kiffin is a hot commodity. The Oregon Ducks are nervous because Dan Lanning's name came out immediately when that news broke. And don't forget Kalen DeBoer, and who in Austin could forget Kalen DeBoer of Washington, who's got that program on an upswing. Duck, of those four, and Kirby Smart ain't going nowhere, so don't even look at us because we didn't mention Kirby. Kirby Smart is Nick Saban in Georgia. He's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Dabo, I don't think they want Dabo. So, and those are guys who have won multiple championships, who have their own little fiefdoms in the Southeast. So I don't think they're going anywhere. But those others, Duck, which fan base do you think should be the most nervous?
Well, it's interesting. We talked about Oregon and Dan Lanning, Oregon fans were tickled that Washington didn't win. And then they were interested that Pete Carroll also was removed from his job as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, and DeBoer has been mentioned possibly for that job.
Woo!
Then he kind of came back and bite him, and then now Dan Lanning's name has come up for a job, and he was a GA at Alabama. I think he's the smart choice. Sark would be a smart choice too.
I think so
Uh,
too.
yeah, both of them would be excellent hires by Alabama. Some wonder if Dan Lanning's too young. He's only been a head coach a couple of years. He's 37, been a GA at Alabama early in his career. Uh, but he's a defensive coordinator by trade. He was Kirby Smart's DC at Georgia. And he produced Bo Nix, who he got off the cheap rack from Auburn
He
and made
was
him
on
a
the
Heisman
clearance.
candidate.
Bo
Made
Nix
him,
was on the clearance rack.
he really was.
$4. He had a green, a red, and a blue tag on him.
And so
And
that
turned
impressed
him
me.
into a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Yeah, so he can coach defense, he can coach offense, and I think he'd be a perfect hire for them. I think, as you said at the outset, Saban truly, really respects Sarkeesian, and he was his OC a
Loves
couple different times. And I'm sure he was endorsing them to Greg Byrne and the Alabama administration. So, interesting is Greg Byrne and Chris Del Conte are very close friends. They are very tight. So I'm sure they've had some interesting conversations today. I just think we don't know Sark that well. He doesn't allow us to know him that well,
Mm-mm.
but he's building something big here at Texas, and he's got Texas poised to go into the SEC on a strong note, on a high note. And do you want to follow in the shadow of the greatest coach ever, or do you want to build Texas back up in the national prominence? So to me,
I don't want to follow him. I
I
do
don't.
not want
I
to.
who would want to follow Nick
And, and,
Saban?
and, and, and if we're talking about money, Doug, if we're talking about cash money,
Hmm.
and Texas can match whatever Alabama wants to throw.
Sure,
Now, if Sark wants to leave, he wants to leave.
sure.
You can't
No,
make someone unwanted to go somewhere.
no, you
But
can't.
if you go to Bama, you're following the GOAT. You're paying state income tax in
Hmm.
Bama. You're living in Birmingham or Tuscaloosa. No shade, just being real. And you're not living in Austin anymore. Let me ask you this. This is something I mentioned on the site formerly known as Twitter. That's a name job. That is a destination job. But is it a destination job now that Nick Saban is no longer the head coach? Because he made it a great job for assistants, because assistants like Kirby Smart and
Hmm.
Jimbo Fisher and Steve Sarkisian, those guys, Dan Lanning, those guys all left and eventually became successful head coaches because
Hmm.
they served at the table of the master. He's the
Yep.
guy. But is it a plum gig after he's no longer there? There'll be a statue of him out front.
Hmm. Oh, there already is.
There's a statue of him out front. There's a
Already
statue of
there.
Bear Bryant out front. I don't think there's a statue of Shula out front. Or I don't think there's a statue. Is Gene Stallings, does he have a statue out front?
No, I don't
I
think he
don't
did.
think he does. But those two delivered. Do you want to be? I'd rather be the second guy with
Hmm.
with Darrell Royal out front at Texas, because this program has upside, Duck. And I'm going to tell you right now, Alabama's going nowhere but down. They can win that. The successor can win 9 games next season, and if they don't make the CFP, if they finish 13th and don't make the 12-team CFP, they're going to try to run him out of town because
Hmm.
it's not Nick Saban. But guess what?
Well,
No one is Nick Saban. No one.
nobody. And like you said, the expectations are just through the roof. I mean, you lose a game or two, people are going to say, "Yeah, he's no Nick Saban."
He ain't Nick. He
You don't
ain't.
you don't have the same pressure here in Austin. Now, there's pressure at
There's
Texas.
pressure because they're desperate, Duck. This
Exactly.
fan base has been dormant
Mhm.
since 2009. They've been dormant. Playing in one Big 12 title game before this season since '09 doesn't cut it.
Mhm.
For the facilities, for the money they're paying, for the recruits that grew up with Longhorn posters on their walls. That does not cut it. So finally, you have a guy who just brought out a big pair of scissors. He cut it this year, Doug.
Mhm.
He got him
He
to the
did.
CFP. He broke through.
It was year 3.
Beat Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa. The
That's
OC
right.
beat the OG in Tuscaloosa. So now you're going to tell me that he wants to leave and pay state income tax? Man,
It's
no one's called us, but I'm not buying it. I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't either. It's a ready-made bed. It's a warm bed. I mean, Jim Harbaugh just won a national title in
He leave.
Michigan,
He's leaving.
where they hadn't won a title since 1997, which they shared,
He
and
can run
hadn't
for
won
cover. He can run for
outright.
cover.
They hadn't run an outright title since 1948.
Mhm.
So they were starved for a national title, and it took Harbaugh 9 years
9
to
years.
produce.
And here
In
Sark is in the semifinals in year
year
3.
3, in year 3.
And he's got the number 3 recruiting class in the country.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that.
He's got 3 great recruiting classes. He's building the roster like he wants it. And you mentioned money. He makes 5.6 million, and with bonuses this year, he was about 6 million. But he's only the 30th highest paid coach in the FBS. 30th. He's down near the bottom. He's only ahead of Charlie Lee at Vanderbilt and Jeff Lebby, the new coach at Mississippi State, were he to be in that list right now. But we do know he's going to
No,
get
but he's
raised.
about to be top
Yeah.
4, top 3. I think he's about to be the highest paid coach. Nick Saban's retired. I think he's about to become the highest paid coach in the
I
country.
don't think he's going to. I mean,
All right,
Dabo's
so
making almost 11 million.
you don't think they're going to give him $11 million?
No, I don't. He's had one great year, you know,
Whoa,
and you
whoa,
know,
whoa, 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 whoa. There you go using logic again. I didn't ask you to be logical. I
mhm,
asked you if Texas is going to do it. Texas, world renowned for overpaying coaches.
sure.
You can't tell me it's not possible that he won't be making 10 or $11 million next year.
No, it's
They
possible.
overpay over there, Doug.
Well, they guarantee
And
salaries.
and bro, he's holding all the leverage.
Sure he is.
You can't come in there, you can't lowball him now. You can't come in there if you're CDC and go, all right, here's 8 million a year. That ain't gonna cut it, Doc. Because
We
Bama will
don't
pay him 10.
we don't know. I mean, Jimmy Sexton would squeeze every red cent out of him. But what's interesting is Del Conte and Byrne are buds, so they talk. So, and I don't think Texas wants to go in that range, pay 11 million for
Who,
somebody who
who
hadn't won a
does?
playoff game yet. Okay, he hadn't won.
Got to the CFP, but he got to the CFP. He
Oh, he
did
got.
he did what Tom Herman couldn't do.
I don't know if that means you double somebody's salary for
Yeah,
that.
but you know what? This conversation is different if Nick Saban didn't quit.
Sure. Well, you don't know if he has an offer yet. Greg
No, we
Byrne
don't
might
know
say, "No,
that,
I'm
but it doesn't right now, Doug. I'm a poker player. Sometimes it ain't it ain't the cards you got. It's the cards they think you have.
sure."
Me, I think if he goes in there with an offer that's less than acceptable to Mr. Sexton and Mr. Sarkeesian, and Greg Byrne, I don't care if he was the best man in Steve Sarkisian's wedding. He ain't telling Steve Sarkisian about his dealings with Chris Del Conte. I mean, he's not telling Chris Del Conte about his dealings with Steve Sarkisian. Not if he wants him as his
He
next
might.
head coach. We talk about them being good friends. I'll ask you the same question if Sark takes his job, if they're still going to be going to Honolulu together in the offseason. I don't know.
Yeah, they would. Business is business. We know that.
Business is business, but it still hurts when you hit on the right guy and then he gets taken from you and then you got to start over. And
Hey,
The one thing about Sark, though, you, culture is not a plug and play type thing. all the blood, sweat, and tears he just put in over these 3 seasons at Texas, he's got to go over there if he takes this job, if it's offered and he takes it. He's got to go over there and redo that. He's got to go over there and start from square one and earn the respect of people he don't know, recruits he didn't recruit.
I don't think he worries about that. He's got
I
enough
don't, I
confidence.
don't, I don't either. But I'm saying it is not an easy thing to do, especially coming off 5-7. And Lord knows he can't debut over there like he did here if he took that.
No, but it's a warm bed. Trust me on that. And if Alabama wants Steve Sarkisian, and Steve Sarkisian wants Alabama,
Then it's
there's
gonna
nothing
happen.
Texas can do.
Then it's gonna
Nothing,
happen.
Texas can do. I tell you who I think a lot of Alabama fans wish was on the market, and that would be one D'Amico Ryans, the former All-American linebacker for Alabama, who's worked his way up and has the Houston Texans job and got him in the
He's,
playoffs.
he's working this weekend, Duck.
Yeah,
He's
he ain't
working.
leaving. He ain't leaving. But it's funny if he'd have been San Francisco's defensive coordinator a year ago, maybe they could have had D'Amico Ryans as their head coach, who would be a great choice. But we've talked about it, and you're high on Lane Kiffin. You think Lane Kiffin would be a good coach to succeed Nick Saban, right?
I like him. He's crazy,
He's
but
crazy.
but he's the best kind of crazy. He's winning crazy.
Hmm.
I mean, he's won most of his games in the SEC. It's not an easy league because he usually got to play those big dogs every year, and so he knows those streets. He's coached in the league for many years. He's been fired before on a tarmac, so
Hmm.
he's sung some blues. But sometimes it's good to hire a coach that's been through something. That's what's made Sark such an interesting study. He was down at the bottom of the barrel, and Nick Saban threw him a lifeline and saved his career. He did. He saved it. He couldn't. He said it. He said it in New Orleans. I couldn't even get an interview. It's Steve Sarkisian with all those credentials. But the
Hmm.
baggage stuck. It was the baggage. And Lane said some about some outlandish stuff, but he doesn't have that kind of baggage. And I don't know if they would ingratiate themselves to Lane Kiffin like they would Sark. Um, Lane's a little nuts. Sark to me might be a little bit more approachable, a little bit more likable. Sark's very polished. He's very
Hmm.
polished, and he could lead my team any day. He's very polished, but um, it's a good problem to have. The one thing Greg Burnt, you can't miss on this hire because
No.
you're replacing a Mount Rushmore head coach. And how many times do you get to say that? In a 10-year span. I mean, that's a monumental decision. This is going to be the biggest hire of his career, and
Yeah, and Lane can handle pressure. He's kind of immune to that, the way he characterizes himself. So I think he'd be a good hire. He'd be fun in the SEC going in. James Franklin at Penn State's another one. I don't think he's got enough chops to get that
he
job.
hasn't won enough. He hasn't
No,
won enough.
no. And I
I
don't
don't
know if
think
there's
they need a
anybody.
splash hire. They're going to hire somebody that's got some skins on the wall already.
Yeah, I don't know how many splash hires there are because we said I don't think they want Dabo either. Kirby's not coming.
I think Lanning's pretty splashy to me.
Well, he is, but I don't know if it's
He's
a
up and
long
coming.
list.
Yeah, he's young. He's young. He's up and
Yeah.
coming. Yeah,
Kalen DeBoer would be too. You know,
Galen.
he's
Yeah,
got no roots in the South, but what he's done, he's gone to what 25-3 in 2 years at Washington. But I don't know if he can sustain it because he had 9 6-year seniors and including a star quarterback, and they're recruiting in Washington is ranked 26th right now. So it's harder to get these kids from the South to go to Oregon or Washington aside from the big NIL money. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating.
it's going to
So
be really fascinating, and who knows? This thing could blow over, or something big could happen this week. We're at the end of the news cycle. We're in the middle of the news cycle. We're taping this on Wednesday night, so there's a couple of more days in the work week, and so something could pop. And um, If I'm Chris Del Conte, I'm like, hey, you better bring a big bag, buddy. Big bag. And you know it. CDC, it's not his first rodeo. And we thought it was a big deal when Bo Davis left. But if this guy leaves, wow, that's
Hmm.
huge. I'm on record as saying I hope he doesn't leave, Doug. I'm
Me too.
enjoying the Steve Sarkisian experience right now, University of Texas. I know a lot of people think that me and you try to tear down the program. You know what? You're so full of crap. Think that you don't read us. You just pile on because you think it's popular on Twitter or whatever they're calling it now. But you ask anybody over there, we've been more than fair to Steve Sarkisian. When he struggled, we wrote about his struggles, and when he succeeded, we've written about his successes. I can't remember the last time I've wrote something really negative about Sark. I mean, if I criticize his play calling, yeah, I'm a sports columnist, is what we do. But we are not here with try to gaslight the University of Texas, and I think that is so overplayed and so tired and so not true. It's not true. So take us for what we write. Do you have to agree with everything we say? No. If you did, we wouldn't be doing our jobs. So we appreciate you reading it. We appreciate you listening to our podcast, which is growing by leaps and bounds. But if you're gonna hate, at least come with something fresh. The other stuff is tired. It's tired.
Well, let's hope we don't have to worry about our own coaching search in the next week. Okay.
And maybe we do. And maybe
You
we
never
do.
know.
We'll jump
You
on
never
that
know.
and we'll be writing about that as well. Let's hope. For the record, Bohls and Golden want to be covering Steve Sarkisian in the SEC next season. And we want to be covering him as the head coach of the University of Texas. Let's
That'd be
make
the
that clear.
preference.
But if he leaves, then best of luck. Steve
Life goes on.
Sarkisian. It's college football. It's
Yeah.
America. People leave jobs every day, and I know some of y'all want us to leave. We're not going.
Hmm.
We're
And if Sark gets the job, maybe Texas can go out and hire Nick Saban because they could finally get that. They could finally
going.
check that box.
And he could finally come here and he can get that house in Spanish Oaks that a lot of you said he bought. Go back to Spanish Oaks and move in next to Nick Saban. I know Kirk can afford it. I'll be the butler. You see me in Spanish Oaks, it's because I'm lost. I'm not in my neighborhood. I can tell you that.
It's been fun. It's going to be entertaining.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of On Second Thought. And check out our other podcast this week where we talk to Rob Babers about the Texas season and what's looking ahead in 2024. We appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next time.
Night.